So today, together with my colleagues and with an introduction also by the European Commission, we will present to you this call for proposal 2026. For your information, the session is registered. You have provided the consensus when you have confirmed your participation to this meeting, but also for your information, this is what we will do. We will also publish a record that we have done for this call for proposal, as well as all the questions that you will ask will be put in a question and answer that will be published on our website, and then regularly we will continue to publish it. Please do not hesitate to use the chat functionality to ask us questions. We will either reply on the spot today, or we will reply back to you during publication of the question and answer every week. So having said so, if we look at the next slide, here we have the agenda. As I have mentioned, we will start with an introductory remark. Then my colleague Nicolas will present to you the call for proposal 26, and this will be followed by a presentation of the two topics that today we're launching, one on FA6, FA7, and the other one on FA7, and we will explain more into the detail with my colleague Judith Sandor. And then we will have a small coffee break and just a session to explain to you the rules for participation of Horizon Europe and therefore of Europe's Rail with the options from the Horizon Europe rules for participation that we have chosen for Europe's Rail. And this will be done by my colleagues Sandro and Anne. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to Joachim for his introduction on behalf of the Commission.
Yeah, thank you, Giorgio, and good morning to everyone. It is my privilege to welcome such a dynamic group of innovators who are committed to drive the next wave of advancements in our sector. This is a moment to reaffirm our shared commitment to ensuring that Europe's rail sector remains a global leader in sustainability, digitalization, and interoperability. Railway has always been the backbone of Europe's mobility, connecting people, goods, and ideas across borders. But sometimes we need to go beyond and explore new possibilities for innovation with and outside of Europe's rail sector. Today marks a significant step forward as we launch the two new calls for proposals under the Europe Rail's Joint Undertaking Initiative. Both focus on innovation in automated multimodal mobility systems, including unconventional fast track-bound mobility and transport system. This represents a frontier of innovation where your proposals can bring unprecedented change to how we perceive and experience rail transport and mobility in general. The first project focuses on sustaining our efforts in innovative regional rail services and guided transport systems. This initiative builds upon the achievement of past projects like Pods for Rail, which sought to innovate rail-based, fully automated mobility systems. Our aim is to develop sustainable, attractive, and passenger-centered solutions enhancing regional and suburban rail services. This also complements the objectives of Flagship 6 to revitalize regional lines. Pods for Rail has been a trailblazer in envisaging an automated and efficient rail system addressing both freight and passenger services with innovations like moving infrastructures. Building on the results from Pods for Rail, we are ready to explore new opportunities in adapting rail services to regional demands. The second project on this call aims to address an incoming challenge as based on current trends and forecasts, we expect that the numbers of passengers will significantly increase in the upcoming decades. The existing transport modes may also face capacity limitations. Emerging technologies for guided transport systems could be a complementary solution for the increased demand, increasing also the availability of sustainable transport solutions. Hyperloop could be a promising alternative since it provides very high-speed travel with low energy needs based on electricity. To ensure the applicability of the system, the safety level should be demonstrated, and it has to be proven that this solution is at least as safe as the existing modes of transport, such as rail or aviation. Together, both projects represent a strong call for innovation, asking for your expertise and creativity to tackle pressing challenges. We need solutions tailored to modern-day needs, emphasizing sustainability and efficiency. Through these calls, we also aim to advance key complementary objectives, as both can be framed as being in the domain of digitalization and automation. These are essential areas of transformation poised to unlock greater safety, efficiency, and more customer-centric railways and mobility operations. The deployment of 5G telecommunications technology is one pivotal aspect, enabling innovations like automated train operations and real-time data management. For our academic and research partners, I want to emphasize the importance of exploratory research in driving disruptive innovation. Defining the technical requirements of an automated multimodal mobility system capable of reducing cost and adaptable to an infrastructure of capillary lines is a challenge that will require innovative thinking. On Hyperloop, our call for safety is far from theoretical. It is about defining the highest levels of safety for a new transport mode. Your expertise and creativity are essential to making this vision a reality. For our small and medium-sized enterprises, let me be clear. You are not just participants in this process, you are drivers of change. We are committed to ensuring that this call provides a level playing field with opportunities for SMEs and startups to contribute their unique perspectives and solutions. Your agility and innovation are exactly what the rail sector needs to stay ahead of the curve. In conclusion, today's calls are more than a procedural step. They serve as a beacon for change. This is the moment to seize opportunities, and I'm eager to witness the work that will emerge from these initiatives. I want to close by emphasizing the importance of dissemination and communication. The success of this call will not be measured solely by the funds by the project it funds, but also by the impact those projects have on the broader rail community and beyond. From the Europe's Rail Joint Undertakings General Assembly to major industry events like InnoTrans and Connecting Europe Days, there are great opportunities to showcase achievements and inspire others to join this journey. Thank you for your participation and dedication. Let us embark on this journey with determination and vision. I'm looking forward to seeing the innovative solutions you develop and the change they will bring. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, Joachim, for your inspiring words. In particular, I have noticed that every participant of this call is there to make a change and to change railways for the better and the more sustainable transport mode. So thank you very much for those opening remarks. I hope everybody is energized and ready to apply for this call on Europe's Rail. I don't know if there are questions. Otherwise, I will move to the next one, which is a small opening remark from my side. I will just remind you of the vision of Europe's Rail is to integrate, to develop a fully integrated European rail network for its citizens and cargo. And in order to do that, we're working on many levers. We want to deliver a high capacity, a flexible, interoperable, multimodal, sustainable, reliable, and competitive, and as well as inclusive transport system, so that we can make through research and innovation rail as the everyday mobility. So this is our vision. How do we turn this vision into reality? Well, first of all, we need to address what are today in Europe for the transport sector the main challenges, and we need to do this in a cooperative manner. So we're delivering altogether solutions to address those shortcomings that will lead us to the vision that I have just explained before. So very much important, and I remind this at every time to all the engineers, is that we are working for the customer. So we need to adapt our solution to the changing customer requirement. We also are very expensive as a rail transport mode, so we need to look into cost-efficient solutions compared to today's solution. We need constantly to improve performance and especially capacity. Let's not forget that we are a guided transport mode, so capacity is difficult to be created with without technology that can enhance the capacity on the current existing line. It can be done, but with a lot of investment. Especially, we need also to address the shortage of workforce. This is transversal. It's not only through the rail sector, but in particular in the rail sector, the knowledge that was developed across the year, the risk to be a gap. So we need also to address this. Climate adaptation and climate change. Climate change will continue to be there. So we needed to have solutions in rail where we make possible rail to run always in every type of climate conditions. We need also to increase the competitiveness. Let's not forget that today the rail industry is a leader worldwide, but its competitiveness it's very much challenged, especially by the Asian railway sector. The interaction with the other transport mode is also a reminder of the fact that rail can play a central role in the future mobility, but needs to be interact with other transport modes. We cannot bring the goods from A to B, neither in general passenger from A to B. We always need to use other transport modes. Therefore, the interaction is and the openness it's very much important. And lastly, the challenge that we don't have to forget is that we're not working in a greenfield situation, but we're working with a legacy system and obsolescence. So all of these needs to be taken into account also to help and support the migration towards better systems. And when I was saying that we needed to work together, it include the committed members of Europe's Rail. Those you can see on the screen. Those members, other than the European Union, are the so-called private members. Those private members are committed to half of the budget of the Europe's Rail joint undertaking. So it means that they commit significant amount of resources in research and innovation. So it's also an important factor for you to know. Those members are also participating in research and innovation activities, as well as with non-members. So in that sense, our calls are open to any type of participant, but you just need to know that those members have already committed to invested a lot of amount of research and innovation for Europe's Rail. And this is the integrated program that will make possible for us to address those challenges together. The European Union put 650 million euros for this to happen, and the private members put other 650 million euros. So it's a significant research and innovation program. It has been built in with the three type of pillars. The first one is the so-called innovation pillar, where most of the research and innovation activities are conducted, and those are conducted in flagship areas around the traffic management, automatization, digitalization, integrated asset management, sustainable technology, competitive freight, cost-effective regional service, which is something that is addressed in this call, and innovation on guided transport, which is also something that is addressed on this call. On top of those flagship areas, we are launching exploratory calls where we touch other subjects generally on a lower TRL than those that are flagship areas. Why we're calling it a flagship areas? Because in most of the cases, we are looking to demonstrators type of solution. Now for this call, we're launching more lower TRL type of solutions, but our aim will always be not to stop at paperwork, but also developing prototypes, obviously where it makes sense and where we can see that there is a potential for also market uptake. When we're speaking of market uptake, we need to think also of systems, because of railways, it's a system of systems. So whichever type of technology is developed needs to interact with other systems. And for this, we have developed the so-called system pillar, which is developing the standardized interfaces among the different subsystems so that we can ensure through a common system architecture that the overall innovation is fit for purpose on one side, but also on the other side, it is interoperable across Europe, and we don't end up in additional entropy or additional future new legacy system. So this is a bit the idea. And in the system pillar, we're also considering all the migration scenario and the consideration that will make us to run a European type of system. And then lastly, in order to have the possibility that those successful solutions are fully deployed in the European network, we have also a deployment group. This does not have per se research type of activities. It's more a kind of a think tank. It provides recommendation to the Commission and Member State on how to best approach a possible future deployment of, again, successful innovation, which is starting to provide the initial bridge between research and deployment. So this is the Europe's Rail program. I have provided just an high-level overview, but now my colleague Nicolas will provide to you additional information more specifically on this call. Thank you very much for your attention. And as mentioned, if you have a question, don't hesitate to write them in the chat.
Thank you very much, Giorgio. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to give you today an overview and highlight on the call 2026-01, so the first call of 2026 launched by Europe's Rail. And I will give you first some information on the call, so general information on the call, regarding also some admission criteria, but also trying to guide you in all the documents that are available on our website and which are linked to this call. And later on, my colleague Judith will give you a deep overview of the call topics, because we have two topics in this first call of 2026. So first, I would like to guide you in what we call the pyramid of documents in Europe's Rail. So on top of the pyramid of the Europe's Rail regulations, so the famous Single Basic Act. But next, we have different kind of documents which are addressing some key priorities of the GU. The first one is the EU Rail Master Plan. So it's a document highlighting the key priorities, the expected impact, and also introducing the structure of Europe's Rail. It has been mentioned by Giorgio before, with the innovation pillar, the system pillar, and the deployment group. And also providing some guidance how this budget of 1.2 billion euro will be used for the implementation of the Europe's Rail program. The second key document is the Europe's Rail multi-annual work program. So this is a document providing much more information on the different flagship areas or destination of Europe's Rail, so on the innovation pillar activities, in which you can find some, let's say, more details on the objectives, expected impacts, also what is planning to be achieved overall the program of Europe's Rail in terms of TRL to be achieved by different flagship areas. So you can find many information on, let's say, more details on the flagship area in this document. There's also an overview on the system pillar activities, because you have different tasks in the system pillar. So you have more information on what the tasks are going to achieve, and also more information deployment group. So the multi-annual program is a key document which gives you the overview of how the program of Europe's Rail will be implemented all over the years. And next, the last document is the annual work program. So this document is published on an annual basis and explain how the work or the budget would be used to implement the activities envisaged by Europe-SREL. So, and it's important to highlight that this annual work program, you can find the call for proposal and tenders. So what we'll present today to you is part of the Europe-SREL annual work program, but I just would like to highlight that it's so important to refer to the multi-annual work program and the master plan, which gives you also additional information on what we want to achieve as Europe-SREL. So on this slide, you have the 3 key documents I mentioned before that I can invite you to have a look at. And in the annual program, what we present today, as I said, we have 2 calls for proposals, which is structured around 2 topics. So the first one is destination 6 and 7, which is addressing the regional rail services, innovative rail services to revitalize capital lines, innovation, new approaches for guided transport modes. And destination 7 is the one addressing the innovation on new approaches for guided transport modes. I would like first to highlight that sometimes there's some confusion with destination and flagship area, but keep in mind that a flagship area is a destination. It's just a question of terminology, but if you see destination is the same as flagship area. So if we speak about flagship area 6 or 7, this is the same as destination 6 and 7. And also, I would like to inform you that all the presentation, what we will present to you today, will be shared with you later on. Now, in terms of, let's say, eligibility or let's say condition to apply to the call. So the first information was mentioned by Giorgio is that this call is open to all eligible entities in accordance with Horizon Europe. And that's why in our call text, you can find some general conditions which are exactly the same as the one which are included in the general annexes to the Horizon Europe Work Program 2026-2027. So those are the same for all the call in the Horizon Europe Work Program 2026-2027 and will apply to the Europe-SREL calls. But we have also included some specific conditions for this call, and the specific conditions are also mentioned in the 2 call topics. So this you will find it in the call text, and I would like to go one by one to also try to explain to you what is behind each specific conditions. So the first one is the expected EU contribution per project. So you will see in the 2 core topics, you have an indication in terms of EU contribution that will be allowed for, that will be allocated for each topic. So this is an indication, but of course it does not, let's say, prevent any applicant to submit a proposal with a different amount. Next, we have the indicative budget, also is part of the 2 call topics. And we have a specific indication for the private members, because the private members of Europe-SREL, if they apply to the call, they have also to demonstrate what we call the in-kind contribution for personal activities or in-kind contribution for additional activities. And this, so they have to demonstrate that all those activities will represent 1, 2, 6, 3 times the funding request. So this is specific for the private members of Europe-SREL. This does not apply to the applicants, or let's say the beneficiaries who are not members of Europe-SREL, but this is specific requirements for the members of Europe-SREL if they apply to this call for proposal. Next, we have the duration. So also you have an indication in terms of duration. So what we do expect as the GU in terms of duration for each call topics. But again, if as an applicant, you would like to propose a different project duration, you can do so. In terms of type of actions, so the 2 call topics are research innovation actions. You have also indication in the 2 call topics on the TRL levels that should be achieved. So this is to give you, let's say, an idea in terms of activities or let's say achievement that should be reached at the end of the projects. Admissibility conditions. So for this one, we have a specific condition for the Europe-SREL proposal. So if you want to submit your proposal for those 2 call topics, it's regarding the number of pages of your proposal. So the maximum number of pages for the proposal is 70 pages. We have another specific condition for 1 topic. So this is the one for the destination 7 or flagship 7, the one addressing hyperloop. So meaning that we are requesting the applicants to demonstrate in their proposal they are bringing some specific skills or knowledge, and you have on this slide a list of skills, or let's say stakeholders that should be, let's say, involved in the proposal. Next, the next specific condition is regarding the contribution of the project to the monitoring, implementation, standardization of the EURL program. So it was explained by Giorgio before that the EURL program is an integrated program with the innovation pillar, the system pillar, and the deployment group activities. So you will see in the code text, you have also some references to the contribution of the project to standardization activities. So meaning the system pillar activities, but also activities that could be managed by your open standardization organizations. So it's very important that you have a careful look at this, and also you reflect in your proposal how your project will contribute to those activities in terms of standardization activities, and also you will inform EuropeSREL about the usage of the result of your project for some European or international standards. You will also find one part with the link projects. So the topics are linked to some projects which are ongoing or that have been finished. And also we would like to encourage the applicants to demonstrate the link of their project with ongoing or past EuropeSREL projects. So that's why we have identified the projects that will be linked, and also because the new projects might need to use some outputs of ongoing or past projects. So this in your proposal should be highlighted, and you should explain to us how you will use the outputs of those projects have been identified, or you intend to cooperate with those projects if they are still ongoing. In terms of, let's say, funding of project per topic, so we do intend to fund one project per topic. In terms of retroactive starting date of the grant, so there is this possibility, if you wish, to start your project before the grant agreement is signed. So let's say in principle, the project will start the month after the signature of the grant agreement. But if you want to start before, it's possible. You just need to explain in your proposal that you will request an early start date, and also to justify why you would like to request this early start date. The lump sum grant, so the two core topics are following the lump sum grant approach, and my colleague Sandro will give you a full explanation on the lump sum grant approach later on today. Award criteria, additional details. So you will see that we have some specific criteria also for the assessment of the proposal to receive, and those criteria will be presented later on by my colleague Anna. And additional dissemination obligations. So as it was said also earlier in the opening speech of Joachim, it's very important also to promote the project activities, to disseminate and communicate on what the project will deliver or what the project are doing. So as EuropeSREL, we have prepared a key document, which is the EuropeSREL Governance and Process Handbook, which is available on our website, but also a reference in the call text. And we do invite you to have a look at this document, because in this document we'll find some information on communication activities, and also what we do expect in terms of activities of the project in the field of dissemination communications. So this will help you to design your project proposal. Regarding the call itself, so the call opened last week on the 1st of February. The deadline for submission of proposal is the 7th of May. And as I said earlier, we have two topics in this call. So the first topic is a mix of activities for the flagship area number 6 and flagship area number 7. And it's a research innovation actions. The explicit level is from 4 to 6. The explicit EU contribution is 3.1 million euro. And we expect to fund one project for this topic. The second topic is the one which is linked to the destination 7 or flagship area number 7. So on innovation, new approaches for guided transport modes. It's also a research innovation action. The TRL level expected is 4. The total EU contribution expected for this project is 3 million euros. And also, we do expect to fund one project for this call topic. Now, regarding the Q&A procedure, so you might have some questions. So either you can ask your question today, but also you can ask your question to the GU during the preparation of your proposals. So just want to clearly underline that if you have some question, please address them to the Europe's Rail GU call funnel mailbox. We have the address on the slide, but also you will find it on the website of Europe. You also will find it in the call topics content. In terms of deadline, so you can submit your questions until the 23rd of April, and the GU will reply to your question and will publish on a regular basis our answers to your questions on the EU funding and tenders portals, but also on the Europe's Rail website. So I just want to highlight that if you have some question, and this might happen, and it's fully understandable that you might have questions, do not hesitate to send your question to this Europe's Rail functional mailbox, and also to check regularly our website or the EU funding tender portals, because we published all the answers to your questions via the Europe's Rail website or the EU funding and tenders portal. Okay, and now I propose to move to the presentation of the two call topics, and I will give the floor to my colleague Judith, who will start with the first one addressing flagship area 6 and 7. Judith?
Yes, thank you very much, Nicola. Good morning to everyone. My name is Judith Sándor, and I'm a program manager in the Europe's Rail Joint Undertaking, and I'm following flagship area 6 and 7. So I'm going to present to you two call topics today. So the first one is about innovation for regional rail services and new guided transport systems. So if you can go to the next slide, you can see the conditions for this specific topic. So as you can see that the expected EU contribution is 3.1 million euro with the indicative project duration of 42 months, and the TRL level is 4 to 6. So as you will see that as in this topic we cover two destinations, the TRL level varies depending from one topic to another. So the type of action is a research and innovation action. And here you can see an extensive list of linked actions. So in the first row, you will, on the first column, you will see the ongoing project, which is FP6 Future, and the POTS for Rail, which is related to the POTS project, of course, and topic. And then on the second column, you can see the names or the titles of the topics which were part of the call 2025-02 EU Rail call. And so the projects are going to start in the second half of this year. So for the moment, we don't have the projects, but we already identified the topics that are relevant from previous call for this 2026 call. So if you go to the next slide, you can see then the expected outcomes of the innovation for regional rail services and new guided transport systems. So as I said, there are two flagship area topics covered under this topic. The first one is covered in workstream 1, which is related to the rolling stock cluster of flagship area 6. So this would be the continuation of the activities that are already started in flagship area 6 Future, and then it further develop a regional railway vehicle, which is adapted for, which should be light, customer friendly, and adapted to capillary lines. So the requirement specification should be really focused on these specific criteria, and with the objective of reducing cost as much as possible. because we all know that in Europe we are facing to lots of closure of secondary lines due to their high expenditures and maintenance costs. So that's why this topic is aiming to find cost-efficient solutions. Another area that should be also considered under this work stream 1, that the key performance indicators which are identified for flagship area 6 and relevant for the rolling stock aspect should be also monitored and measured within this project. Workstream 2 is focusing on automated multimodal mobility systems for moving infrastructure. So this is more looking into future transport solution, which could be used for different infrastructure, saying from rail, road, and also ropeway would be considered. The works has already started, as it was mentioned before, in the POTS for Rail project, and now the design concept of such a system and its subsystems should be further researched. So with the specific focus should be given to the carrier, the transport unit, the handling system, and also the communication part, which you will see in the coming slides. Beyond the further development of this concept and defining the requirements and the architecture, another area would focus on the political, economical, social, technical, and legal and environmental aspects. So since this is a transport solution which would support the currently available transport modes, that's why it would be also important to analyze what are the legal, what are the economical, cost-related elements that should be considered in order to make this POT system feasible at the European network. If you go to the next slide, please, then I would go into more the details of the scope of the different work streams. So work stream 1, which I mentioned already on the rolling stock cluster for regional rail vehicles. There are two elements to be, two main divisions of the activities. One of them is focusing on the virtual concept design, and the second one is really doing a validation of the components that are identified in the call text. With regards to a virtual concept design, as you may know, in flagship area 6, there are two different line categories are considered. One of them is the interoperable lines that are covered by the European regulations, and then there are, which is called G1. So you will see in the call text the reference to G1, which is on the interoperable lines, and then G2. These are the lines which are not covered by the TSI, which are disconnected from the main line. And so in the virtual concept design, both line categories should be considered, and the vehicle design should be developed until TRL 4.5. So many of the requirements you can already find in the flagship area 6 deliverables. Here it's already a reference to deliverable 5.1. But on top, additional requirements coming from regional rail operators' experience and knowledge should be also considered. As it's also written, dual use operation shall be also assessed. So it means that not only for civilian, but also for military purposes, how these vehicles could be used for in both circumstances. So the virtualization should focus mainly on key vehicle components areas like the car body, the running gear, and the powertrain. And then beyond having the virtual concept design, also future additional assessment on their societal readiness, meaning that how this is fit with the customer needs and customer expectations shall be assessed, as well as assessing the weight and energy consumption reduction and the cost saving in a quantitative manner. These are also listed as key KPIs for the rolling stockcaster. With regards to the validation, development and validation of the physical components, you see the list of specific areas that have been identified, 2 for car bodies, 2 for running gear, and 1 for powertrain. So the first 2 one is related to the car body. So based on in both cases, you should link the activities of the virtual concept design with the development exercise, and they should reach TRL 4 and 5. For the running gear, there are 2 elements as well. So one of them is the single axle running gear concept, supporting vehicles without compressed air systems, which should be tested in a test roller ring test, and then with TRL 4 and 5. And then there is a physical demonstration of a running gear with independent rotating wheels, which are expected to be tested at TRL 6 and demonstrated at TRL 6. Finally, for the powertrain, so different test of battery electric solutions should be tested, considering different range extender solutions, because sometimes for regional lines, we know that charging stations are much more limited, and also the electrified lines are limited. So the use of battery is much more general, and that's why how they should fit to these capillary regional lines should be further analyzed and adapted. So here, this is a TRL 4-5, which is expected from the research exercise. If we go to the next slide, then I will introduce to you the workstream 2 about the automated multimodal mobility system with moving infrastructure. So as I said, this pod system aims to run on different surfaces. So rail, road, as well as ropeway should be also considered. The 2 main areas is one of the further development of the system architecture and the concept, as well as I mentioned before, the pestle analysis. So with regards to the technical developments, you see the key areas on the carrier, the transport unit, the handling system, loading system, and the mobility management system and automation. So most of them are also focusing on further developing the work that has been done in the POTS for Rail project. So you will see in the call text references to the already achieved results and intermediate results of the project. POTS for Rail is still ongoing, so there are some deliverables which are going to be published in the coming months. So even during the proposal preparation phase, I would highly recommend to you to look at the POTS for Rail website in order to see if there are new deliverables that could be relevant for your activities are available, in order to gain more in-depth knowledge on the preliminary outcome of the project. So here the TRL level varies from TRL3 to TRL4. And then a new aspect is also considered in this call, which hasn't been addressed in POTS for rail. This is about stations that you can see under a pastel analysis. So a design concept study for a multimodal connectivity at stations, hubs, and logistics hubs should be also investigated. And as I said, it should be considered as a multimodal aspect, railroad and ropeways. If we go to the next slide, then I would go to the other topic, which is related to the hyperloop. So safety and certification guidelines and demonstration of safety components for hyperloop. Next slide, please. So as we know that hyperloop is a potential new transport solution, and then it's very important their connection with the other transport modes. And many of the considerations are already addressed in the Hyper4Rail project. Here it's really focusing on the safety and the certification aspect. Because of course, if there is a new transport mode introduced for at European level, it needs to be ensured that the safety is as well covered as for the other modes of transport. So it's a safe and a secure solution that Europeans and citizens can trust. And of course, as it's a new transport solution, also the certification guidelines for safety are not yet identified. So this is also a key area to be investigated in order to support the potential development and creation of this new transport solution. So the Expatic EU contribution is 3 million euros. The indicative project duration is 36 months. The technology readiness level is 4. It's again a RIA. And the linked actions are linked to the Hyper4Rail project. So some of the activities that are identified in this call are closely linked to the work that is ongoing in the Hyper4Rail project, as well as in the standardization group Sensenelec GTC20. So knowledge on these areas could be very much needed for this proposal preparation. If you go to the next slide, please, you can see that this topic is also divided into 2 work streams. So one of them is focusing on the safety and certification activities, and the second work stream is about the validation of the safety components. So it's more on testing and assessing the safety requirements and guidelines that are developed in workstream 1. So with regards to workstream 1, as I said, this work should be very closely elaborated with very closely collaborated with the Sensenelec GTC20 and other relevant technical committees. There could be some, of course, rail-related as well as aviation-related other technical committees in order to use the safety practices and knowledge that are coming from the other modes of transport, such as rail and aviation. So the proposed, so this work stream should really focus on identifying safety guidelines. I would like to also highlight that, of course, the JU is not a standardization organization. So all the work that is developed in these projects should be then, these are proposals that could be provided to the standardization organizations or the regulatory organizations and these could be an input for those activities, but the JU itself is more just to provide proposals and guidelines that could be then considered by the relevant standardization and regulatory bodies. With regards to the workstream 2 on the functional validation of the safety components, so there are in the next slide, you will see that in the core, there are some safety components which are identified. It should be should be tested and validated based on the safety requirements identified in workstream 1. And there should be a proof of concept developed and tested again with safety requirements and certification procedures coming from the first work stream. So these two work streams are very closely interconnected. If you go to the next slide, please. So you will see the three main areas of the safety and certification guidelines support exercise. So first one is, of course, identifying the safety requirements. So analyzing the needs, doing benchmarking and understanding on the safety regulation requirements from other modes of transport, as well as defining the safety requirements for the hyperloop system and at subsystem level. Here, I would like to already highlight the standards that are available at CENELEC JTC 20. So those should be definitely basis of the work, as well as there are some preliminary results from the Hyper4Rail project on the architecture and concept design, which should be also the basis for this first step. The technical safety guidelines proposal should be in consolidation with regulatory and standardization bodies. So we are expecting a close collaboration and involvement of the standardization bodies, as well as that the project partners have links with the ERA, so the European Union Agency for Railways, and as well as EASA, so for the Aviation Safety Agency, in order to analyze and gain knowledge from what existing transport solutions have as safety requirements, safety standards, and based on this experience, develop a target safety level for Hyperloop, identify a common risk assessment approach for risk mitigation, and also develop a recommendation for a common safety method for operation and maintenance for the future potential Hyperloop system. So these elements should be part of the technical safety guideline proposal exercise. And then the third element of the workstream 1 is about the certification roadmap. This again, as I mentioned, with in consultation with the regulatory bodies, so identifying the legal requirements and procedures for certification of Hyperloop, of the Hyperloop solution, but then based on already existing transport solutions, then developing a roadmap. This should, of course, include timeline, what are the costs, the economical impacts, as well as a high-level design for necessary certification facilities based on the Hyperloop concept developed in the Hyper4Rail proposal, and which is further assessed in this work stream. And then, based on that, coming with a proposal for a basic decision-making structure leading to an authorization of a running operation in Europe for Hyperloop. as a new potential transport system. If we go to the next work stream, as I mentioned, this is related to the validation of the safety components. And here you can see already a list of components and subsystems that should be tested validated in a laboratory environment, so TRL4. So this is not an extensive list. You may consider other elements which are not listed here. So the first one is related to the control command and signaling system with special focus on the communication aspect. Then two components related to the pod or for the vehicle of Hyperloop. There are two examples given here. However, there can be other examples taken by the consortium. So the proposal is on braking system or traction bogies. And then the fourth element is related to the interface for the passenger exchange door on board the vehicle and the platform. So this is a very relevant area to make the Hyperloop solution efficient, because here this is the interface when it's between the platform and the vehicle itself, and the efficiency with regards to keeping the time, so having a quick exchange and boarding and onboarding of the passengers is critical, as well as how the vacuum is kept at the right level. So that's why this is considered as a relevant area for validation in this proposal. And then, as I mentioned, that there are very close links with workstream 1. So the validation of the above mentioned systems and subsystems should be validated according to the requirements defined in workstream 1 and tested based on the identified process in workstream 1. So this is, in a nutshell, the scope of the two topics. Of course, in the work program, you will find a more detailed description. And then, of course, if you have any questions, as it was already explained by the previous speakers, you can raise your questions during this info day, as well as you can use the info call email address to ask questions during the next coming months while the call text and the proposal is the call text is open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith, for the presentation of the two call topics. I see that so far there is no question in the chat, but I would propose that we have now a coffee break. So we'll have the coffee break until 10:50. And from 10:50, we'll restart with two presentations from my colleague Anna, who will give you an highlight on the legal guidelines applying to this call, and also from my colleague Sandro, who will explain to you the financial guidelines also applying to this call. So we'll restart at 10:50, so 20 minutes coffee break. Thank you. Okay. It's 10:50. I hope you're all back, and I would propose to continue the info day session. And as I said before the coffee break, we'll continue with my colleague Anna and also with my colleague Sandro. And we'll start with Anna, who will provide an overview of the legal guidelines we are applying to this call. Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So good morning to everyone. I'm Ana Torres, and I'm the Grant and Legal Officer in EU Rail, and I will give you an overview of the general rules applicable to any Horizon Europe call for proposals, so including EU-Rail's call for proposals and draw your attention to a few specificities of EU-Rail call for proposals. Next slide, please. So where can you find the call for proposals? Well, you know that you can find it on the Funding and Tenders portal and on EU-Rail's website. The Funding and Tenders portal is the primary online gateway for applicants to EU funding programs and tenders. This is where you should primarily look to find all the information related to the call for proposals and also the guidance documents. Next slide, please. Before submitting your proposal, you need to have a participants identification code, PIC, which if you don't have it yet at the moment of submitting your proposal, it can be validated by the central validation services later on, but at least you have to have requested it. And apart from that, when starting preparing your proposal, there are certain checks that you can already conduct yourself in terms of exclusion, admissibility, and eligibility. We will go into details on each of them. But this is something that you yourself, you can already start looking at the rules so that you you prepare well the proposal to avoid any surprises issues later on. For the rest, you just need to follow the rules described in the call for proposals. Next slide, please. Exclusion. This is the first check to be done. And to do so, you need to know that there is a database, so-called EDES, which stands for Yearly Detection and Explosion System, which is a database established by the European Commission to reinforce the protection of the Union's financial interests and to ensure sound financial management. This database includes a list of persons or entities which are excluded from contracts financed by the EU budget, among others on the grounds of significant deficiencies in complying with their main contractual obligations, fraud, corruption, and other misconducts. Applicants who are subject to these EU administrative sanctions or are in certain exclusion situations can just not participate in EU funding. These situations are, for instance, bankruptcy, being in breach of social security or tax obligations, grave professional misconduct, fraud, corruption, or in general, any deficiencies in complying with contract law or grants already granted. Applicants will also be refused if, during the process of submitting a proposal, evaluation, grant preparation, etc., they fail to participate or to reply or supply information that is being requested. And of course, also if they are in any situation of conflict of interest. Next slide, please. In terms of admissibility, this is another check that needs to be done. Of course, applicants must submit the proposal before the deadline and electronically via the Funding and Tenders portal. The applications must be complete and contain a dissemination and exploitation plan. And of course, the applications must correspond to the page limit. This is one of the specificities actually of EURAIL's call for proposals. And as already explained, for the RIAs included in this call for proposal, they have a page limit of 70 pages maximum. Next slide, please. Third point to be checked is the eligibility of your proposal. There are two kinds of eligibility. The most complete eligibility, the highest eligibility, is the one which allows you to participate, not only to participate, but also to receive funding. In order to be able to participate in an Horizon Europe proposal and to receive funding, you have to be an applicant from an EU member state or from a country associated to Horizon Europe. There are other specific cases for EU bodies and international organizations which are also eligible to participate and to receive funding. Let's have a look now at the particular case of the associated countries to Horizon Europe. So these are here on the slide, you can see the current 21 associated countries to Horizon Europe, which are listed here. The last country to join the club, I can say like that, is Switzerland, which joined the Horizon Europe program since this year. Actually, well, sorry, not this year, but last year, since the 10th of November of 2025. Since the 10th of November of 2025, this is the date of the signature of the agreement between Switzerland and the European Union, so that this country is now an associated country to Horizon Europe. So since then, the entities from Switzerland can apply as beneficiaries and can sign agreements as beneficiaries. Before that, since January 2025 until 10th of November 2025, they were eligible, entities from Switzerland, but they could only sign agreements as associated partners because they had to wait until the signature of the association agreement to be able to sign the grants as beneficiaries. This is the past. Now, since November last year, they are a full associated country to Horizon Europe. And at the moment, there are 3 countries because this list evolves. The last information, the last update was done on the 1st of January 2026. So on the basis of this last update, at the moment, there are 3 countries, Egypt, Japan, and Morocco. In other words, entities from these 3 countries, which are applying transitional arrangements, which means that entities from these countries are eligible. And of course, they will only be, entities from those countries will only be, let's say, entitled to sign a grant agreement, to be beneficiaries in a grant agreement, if the association agreement with the EU has already been signed and entered into force. There are other countries which are in the process of negotiating the association to Horizon Europe, for instance, Singapore. And this list, as I was saying, is updated depending on the evolution on the negotiations with the different countries. Next slide, please. A lower level of eligibility, the one which allows you at least to participate in an Horizon Europe funded action, is the one which applies to the non-associated third countries. Entities from non-associated to Horizon Europe countries can participate in an Horizon Europe funded action, but only as associated partner. Let's not confuse here, because on one hand we have the term non-associated country to Horizon Europe. On the other hand, we have associated partner, but these are 2 different things. Actually, an entity from an EU member state or an associated country to Horizon Europe could participate as associated partner in an action, but an entity from a country which is not associated to Horizon Europe can only participate in an Horizon Europe funded action as associated partner. This is an important difference. And this brings us to the definition of eligibility, the general rule. The general rule, you have it here on this slide, which is the following: any legal entity, regardless of its place of establishment, therefore including legal entities or international organizations from non-associated countries, are eligible to participate. And this is independent from whether this entity is eligible for funding or not. This is the general rule. And of course, there is an exception to this general rule, which refers to the entities from countries which are subject to specific EU restrictive measures. And these measures are public. At the moment, since some time already, unfortunately, entities from Russia, Belarus, and non-government controlled territories of Ukraine cannot participate in EU funding in any capacity. This includes all possible participation, including subcontractors, by the way. There are other countries subject to these restrictions, such as China. And actually, in the latest work program 2026-27 of Horizon Europe, in the general annexes, which apply to these corporate proposals. The restrictions to Chinese entities have been extended, clarified, so that these entities from China can only be eligible where explicitly allowed. Next slide, please. There are other eligibility criteria. One of them is the gender equality plan, which is mandatory for some applicants, which are public bodies, higher education establishments, and research organizations from member states and associated countries. Entities which are any of these three mentioned here must have a gender equality plan. Others, which are not listed here, other kind of entities can also have it, of course. Actually, they are encouraged to have it, but for these particular applicants, it is mandatory. This gender equality plan must cover, but must include the following. First of all, it has to be published. It has to be published on the applicant's website and signed by the top management. This is absolutely essential. The plan must show dedicated resources. There must be resources dedicated to this objective of gender equality. Data has to be collected and continuously monitored. Sex gender disaggregated data on personnel and annual reporting based on the indicators must be approved, and it should include training, awareness among the staff of the organization. There is a self-declaration that you will have to fill in when preparing the proposal. And if you are selected, as I said, having this gender equality plan is necessary. Otherwise, the grant cannot be signed. The work program 2026-2027, or Horizon Europe, has not simplified somehow, but reinforced actually this, clarified this requirement. For sure, it is still an eligibility criterion, and there are actually checks by the European Commission, which are now intensified. Here's an echo again. Please also note that gender equality can influence the assessment of your proposal under the excellence criterion that we will see later on. So it's really important to pay attention to this. Next slide, please. Another eligibility criterion is forming a consortium. A consortium of applicants must be composed of 3 legal entities from 3 different countries. One of them at least has to be from a country, from an EU member state, established in an EU member state, and the at least two other more legal entities have to be established, in this case, either in different member states, different from the first one, or in an associated country. But this is really the minimum, and please bear in mind that the affiliated entities which do not sign the grant agreement do not count towards the minimum eligibility criteria for consortium composition. Next slide, please. You can have different roles in a proposal, in a grant, in a consortium, and it is very important that each role is clearly differentiated. And this is explained in detail in the model grant agreement, and to avoid any issues. And there is a reason for that, for this clear distinction between the roles. First of all, you can be a beneficiary. Beneficiaries are the ones receiving the funding from the grant, are responsible before the granting authority, do implement the grant agreement and all its obligations, and of course, the coordinator has to be one of the beneficiaries. The affiliated entities are linked either legally or capital linked to a beneficiary. Of course, they do the work and then declare their cost. And in many aspects, not to say all, almost, they are as beneficiaries, treated as beneficiaries. Then you can be also an associated partner. The associated partners, they work, but they cannot declare costs. Of course, associated partners do not sign the grant agreement, therefore they don't receive funding. Although there are certain grant obligations that apply to them. And you can also be a subcontractor. Subcontractor does work as well, but in this case, they are invoicing, they may declare this cost in an invoice, and these invoices are sent to the beneficiaries. Subcontractors are entities that are subcontracted by beneficiaries. You can also be a third party providing contributions. In-kind contributions, and the beneficiary as well may declare the cost of these contributions. Next slide, please. The structure of a proposal. Part A of the proposal contains all the administrative information about the applicant, who will be the future coordinator, the beneficiaries and affiliated entities, the summarized budget of the proposal, and the call-specific questions. Part B contains the technical description of the project. And here on the slide, you can see the other elements of the Horizon Europe proposals, which changed, some of them changed in this program, Horizon Europe, compared to the previous programs. Next slide, please. An ethics review. Ethics review, please bear in mind when preparing your proposals that an ethics review, an ethics assessment, will be part of the evaluation of your proposal. First, your proposal will be evaluated, and later on it will be also evaluated specifically from the ethics point of view. And of course, all proposals must comply with the ethical principles and all applicable European, international, and national law referred to ethical principles, fundamental ethical principles. So applicants will have to complete a self-assessment. You will find some guidance, of course, on how to complete this self-assessment. And on the basis actually of your self-assessment, ethics evaluators or experts will then see whether it is necessary to proceed to an extended ethics review or not. So it is very important that you fill in this ethics self-assessment, because on basis of this, there could be further checks. If there was an extended ethics review, it could happen that there are some specific ethics requirements decided by the experts who are evaluating your proposal, which would then become ethics deliverables in the grant agreement. Next slide, please. There is also another self-assessment that you will have to fill in, which is related to security. The focus is on whether the proposal uses or generates EU classified information, whether there could be some misuse of results, for instance, that could be channeled into crime or terrorism, and whether some of the activities proposed involve information or materials subject to national security restrictions. Again, depending on your self-assessment, there could be some further scrutinies, further checks. Next slide, please. Now it comes the evaluation of your proposal. If your proposal is admissible and eligible, it will be evaluated on the basis of 3 award criteria, which are excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of implementation. These are the 3 criteria of Horizon Europe. And in addition, you have some sub-criteria for each of them, which you can find in Annex 8 of EU Rails Work Program 2026. These sub-criteria, you find them here listed on this slide. Is for the case of excellence, the sub-criteria specific for EU Rails for proposals is that evaluators, experts who are going to evaluate your proposal will need to look in particular at the quality of the proposed joint activities to achieve the deliverables. Second, they will need to look at the quality and credibility of the action to contribute to achieving the EU Rail Master Plan objectives and the expected impact on EU Rail multi-annual work program. And third, the evaluators will have to look in particular in relation to the quality and efficiency of the implementation of your action, whether the proposed action is appropriate. They will need to look at the appropriateness of the project management structure and quality of the proposed coordination. In the next slide, you find here the structure that you can find in Work Program 2026. Annex 8, as already mentioned. As you know, there are only two RIAs in this call for proposals. So here you have, again, the general criteria for excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. And below, in orange color, bolded, you find the 3 sub-criteria, additional criteria specific for EU calls for proposals. Next slide, please. So the proposal will be evaluated, as we said, against 3 award criteria that we just seen. And how do evaluators score and weight your proposals? So basically, their scores, the evaluators' scores, will be awarded for the criteria, for each criteria. For the full applications, each criterion will be scored out of 5. The threshold for individual criteria will be 3. The overall threshold applying to the sum of the 3 individual scores will be 10. Weighting is only used for the ranking, not to determine if the proposal passed the threshold. And proposals that pass both the individual threshold and the overall threshold will be considered for funding, and of course, within the limits of the available call budget. Next slide, please. What is the estimation of the time needed in order to evaluate your proposal? If successfully evaluated, being invited to the grant agreement preparation, and then finally ending with the grant signature. So it altogether should be around 8 months. So 5 months from the deadline of the submission of your proposal for the evaluation. This is the time normally needed for the evaluation of the proposals. And then after that, 3 more months for the grant agreement preparation phase. So altogether 8 months until if successful, you would be invited to grant signature. Finally, how does it look, a grant agreement? So everything is done electronically. From the preparation signature of the grant until the end of the implementation of the action through the funding and tenders portal. There is a corporate structure, which means that we are following the corporate model grant agreement, in particular for lump sum, where you find all the provisions applicable to the implementation of the action. And I would like to highlight in particular Annex 5, which is a very important annex, a long annex where you find all important rights and obligations, important rules related to a variety of issues, from security, ethics, values, IPR, communication dissemination, open science, and visibility, and some specific rules for carrying out the action. And that's all for me for the moment. Of course, I'm happy to reply to any question you may have, either today or later on, as already informed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the presentation. Now we'll give the floor to my colleague Sandro, who will explain the financial guidelines applying to this call. Sandro?
Thank you, Nicolas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandro Benidio, and I will now explain some of the key financial guidelines involved in EU-Rail calls. We will go through the 3 key points of the relation between EU-Rail and the Horizon program. First, we'll look at the lump sum grants, then we'll discuss the budget table used in the calculation of these lump sums, and finally, we go through the members' contribution tables. Next slide. So starting on lump sum grants, why do we use lump sum funding? So lump sum and the main difference with standard grant agreements, despite all simplification, funding based on reimbursements of incurred costs stayed complex and error-prone. The lump sum project funding removes all obligations on actual cost reporting and financial ex post audits, which is a major reduction of the administrative burden. The access to the program becomes easier, especially for small organizations and newcomers. There's also more focus on performance, with a shift from focus on financial management and checking costs to a focus on the scientific and technical content of the projects. eRail calls work with lump sum projects, as stated. We opted for this approach in order to simplify the grant signature and the reporting processes. Lump sum removes all obligations on actual cost reporting and financial ex post audits, and the access to the program becomes easier, simpler, and more focused on results instead of financial management. The project is divided in work packages, will only be paid once they are fully completed. Next slide. To write a proposal, you should use the standard Horizon Europe application form. You should present the objectives and methodology of your project as in any Horizon Europe proposal. Describe in detail the activities covered by each work package. All proposals must contain a detailed budget table. The applicants will provide this through the dedicated Excel table that will supply you. This table contains all the information concerning the project financials, and the table is automatically generates the breakdown of the lump sum per beneficiary and per work package. You must download it from the submission system and fill it in and submit it as an annex to the Part B of your application form. Next slide. So this detailed budget table must comply with the basic eligibility conditions. When filling it, participants must ensure the best value for money, or if appropriate, the lowest price, and be free from any conflicts of interest, especially in that concerns purchases and subcontracting. If the budget table contains ineligible costs, the grants may be reduced. Next slide. Concerning the amount of work package you can have, you can have as many as needed, but no more than what is manageable. Work packages with a long duration may be split along the reporting periods, management, dissemination, exploitation. In this way, the relevant activities can be paid at the end of the concerned reporting period. The next slide. You need to know which participant does what when carrying out the project. The partner organizations and their activities shall be specified in the grant agreement, and they can be beneficiaries, affiliated entities, associated partners, or subcontractors. The costs actually incurred are not relevant, but who does the work still is. Next slide. The budget table you'll see allows for the breakdown of cost categories, and you can submit personal costs, subcontracting, purchase costs, other cost categories, and indirect costs. Next slide. Regarding the personal costs, the main difference with the H2020 program is the discontinuation of the different formulas applied. In Horizon, it's only requested to use a single corporate daily rate and calendar year approach. This means that the calculation is based per calendar year from January to December. For calculating the daily rate for any possible situation, irrespective of full-time, part-time, partial hire, you will have to use the formula actual personal costs during the months within the reporting period divided by the maximum declarable day equivalents. Next slide. With regards to subcontracting, it's the next one, Nicola, please. With regards to subcontracting, the principles of ensuring best value for money, no conflict of interests, and subcontracting of only a limited part of the action are still compulsory. In case of breach, the GU may reduce the grant. The estimated costs for each subcontract do not have to be included in Annex 1 or 2. Nevertheless, the cost of subcontracting must be indicated in the financial Excel table. Next slide. Concerning the purchase costs, they are divided into travel and subsistence, equipment and other goods, works and services. They must fulfill the general eligibility conditions and be brought using the beneficiary's usual purchasing practices, such as the best value for money and the no conflict of interests. So as said before, the evaluation of a lump sum grant is similar to the standard grants. Proposals are evaluated according to the Horizon Europe procedures and with the help of independent experts. Key elements being evaluated are excellence, impact, quality, and efficiency of the implementation. The independent experts will first assess whether the resources proposed and the split of lump sum shares allows achieving the activities. They will assess if the budget estimate is accurate and appropriate in view of the proposed resources for each work package. They will also assess the budget estimate on the basis of the relevant statistical data, and they will verify that includes all the necessary declarations, including the one that assesses the budget estimate on the basis of the relevant statistical data. Next slide. We follow the standard process to prepare the grant agreement. The grant agreement for your project will be based on the model grant agreement for lump sum grants. The grant agreement is prepared on the basis of the proposal you submit, and the breakdown of the lump sum shares per beneficiary and per work package is included in the grant agreement as Annex 2. Next slide. This Annex 2 reflects the lump sum breakdown shown in the budget table. In it, you can see which work package each of the beneficiaries work and how much budget is allocated. You can use the budget as you see fit as long as the project is implemented as agreed. Budget transfers between work packages and partners require an amendment if the consortium wants to reflect them in the grant agreement. Next slide. So as you can see, the Annex 2, you have the breakdown per beneficiary and also per work package. And you only show amounts for the work package where this beneficiary will work. Next slide. So concerning the payments, there are three types of payment. There's pre-financing, interim payments, and the payment of the balance. The pre-financing is paid within the first 60 days of the signature of the grant agreement. The interim payments are paid upon the submission of the reporting periods, and the payment of the balance is done upon the project's closure and after the review and approval of all project deliverables. Next slide. So during the reporting and payment phase, you should use the standard reporting template. The coordinator declares work packages as completed or not completed. This should also be justified in the technical report, and at the final reporting period, it is possible to declare partially completed work packages and to enter the percentage of completion in which will result in the payment of the percentage of the full amount. Now, next slide. Work packages, the acceptance of work package. So work packages are accepted if the activities have been carried out. The lump sum projects can be amended according to the technical needs. The use of these mechanisms to make you can use these mechanisms to make the completion of the work packages feasible. If the rejection of a completed work package is upheld, the lump sum share concerned is not paid at that point in time. You should complete the work package later and declare it at the end of any subsequent reporting period. If it's not possible to complete a work package by the end of the project, the lump sum is paid partially in line with the degree of completion. The decision, of course, of the partial amount is taken on a case-by-case basis and with the review of the joint undertaking. Next slide. Just to summarize, the lump sum grants can be amended, the same procedure and conditions for all Horizon grants. Lump sum work packages that have already been paid cannot be amended. Next slide. In what respects ex post controls, there are no financial audits anymore, but there's the possibility of ex post technical reviews that will check the proper implementation of the action and check compliance with other obligations of the grant, such as IPR obligations related to third parties, and others like ethics, EU visibility, and so on. Next slide. With the lump sum approach regarding keeping records, what do we request? So we need you to keep technical documents, publications, prototypes, deliverables, and any document proving that the work was done as detailed in Annex 1. We don't request any more timesheets, payslips, contracts, travel invoices, or actual costs. These documents should, however, be kept in case of eventual technical ex post audit as foreseen in Article 20 of the lump sum grant agreements. So now I will talk you about the budget table that you need to include with your proposal. So next slide, please. This Excel file can be downloaded directly in the call page, and once filled in, it should contain all the relevant financial information from the proposal. So on the first tab, there are all the instructions on how to fill in the table. Each proposal must submit one detailed budget table as an Excel file. Each tab of the file presents a different set of information, and I advise you to read the instructions attentively and carefully before initiating encoding the table. Next slide. So after reading the instructions, you should start by encoding the information in the tab BE list, which is the list of beneficiaries. Here you should add all the beneficiaries and affiliated entities and choose their respective funding rate. Once completed, you should click on the button Apply Changes, and the table will now include a tab for each beneficiary together with their respective affiliated entities. Next slide. After filling the beneficiaries tab, the next step should be to fill in the WP list, which is the list of work packages. In this tab, you should add all the work packages defined for the project and their descriptions. Once completed, you'll click on the button Apply Changes, and the table will now be ready to complete with the financial information from all the beneficiaries and all the affiliated entities. So each beneficiary will have an individual tab together with its affiliated entity. Next slide. So after this, each beneficiary should complete one individual sheet. This individual sheet will include one separate section for each work package and for each affiliated entity. For each work package in which the beneficiary participates, you should enter cost estimations under each of the cost categories used. So only the yellow cells can be filled. You should enter only the number of items and the cost per item for each category. The total costs per category are calculated automatically, and at the end of the sheet, you can find a summary with the information concerning all work packages and the total cost foreseen for this individual beneficiary and affiliated entity. So next slide. Just to reinforce, if a beneficiary has an affiliated entity, columns from this entity are generated automatically, and you should enter the cost estimation of the affiliate entity in the same way as you do for the main beneficiary. It will be on the right column next to the main beneficiary one. Next slide. So the direct personal costs, they can be, there's a breakdown between the type. So you should enter the total number of items and the average cost per item for each category of personal costs. So one item equals 1 person month. For SME owners and natural person beneficiaries, the cost per item is predefined based on the country of the organization. Personal costs will be evaluated by the experts using the Horizon dashboard for lump sum evaluations and our own internal average personal costs table. If your personal costs are higher than the values in the dashboard, you must justify them in the Any Comments tab. Next slide. There's one line for subcontracting per beneficiary and per work package. You should enter the number of subcontracted tasks for a given beneficiary and a given work package as a number of items. The cost per item will be an average cost of all subcontracted tasks. So the tasks to be subcontracted and the cost must be described and justified in this table. And the costs entered here must match the costs entered in the Excel file. So whatever you put in the Excel file should be coherent with the information that you add to the part B of the application. Next slide. Sorry. So again, the direct purchase costs, you should enter the total number of items and the average cost per item for each relevant category, similar to what we did previously. The cost per item will be an average of the prices of all items in the given category. for a given beneficiary and a given work package. If the purchase costs exceed 15% of the personal costs of a given beneficiary, this beneficiary must then complete table 3.1 of the part B in the proposal template, similar to what is done for the subcontracting. Next slide. There is a tab for depreciation. So in this tab, you have a tool where you can calculate the depreciation costs of any equipment to be used in the action. This will help you define the amounts to be added in the individual beneficiary sheets concerning depreciation. This amount is not automatically transferred to the respective beneficiary tab. You're going to have to use it here, calculate it here, and then manually add to the depreciation costs in the dedicated section of the beneficiary tab. Next slide. Certain type of costs can be entered only if they are explicitly allowed for the specific conditions of your topic. Indirect costs in the table are calculated automatically. The total costs are also calculated automatically. Next slide. After completing the information on the individual beneficiaries tab, there's a tab called Summary per Work Package, and this will give you an estimation of costs of all beneficiaries for each work package. In this tab, you will find the summary of the participation of all beneficiaries and all work packages in the project. The summary tables available will be used by the evaluators during the evaluation of your proposal. Next slide. In the table BEWP person months, it will give you the number of person months each beneficiary plans to allocate to each work package. Again, after completing all the individual beneficiary sheets, you'll find a summary of the effort allocated for all beneficiaries, including their affiliated entities, and for all the work packages. Next slide. And the lump sum breakdown. So, as with the other summary tabs, the breakdown of the lump sum per work package and per beneficiary is generated automatically on the basis of the individual costs, estimation for each beneficiaries. It displays the lump sum shares per beneficiary, affiliated entity, and per work package. It applies the funding rate that you've chosen at the beginning of the filling of the table in the beneficiaries list. In the part A of the application, you will have to fill in the budget for the proposal table. You should enter the requested grant amount for each participant, and to do so, you should use this lump sum breakdown and the total amounts per beneficiary to complete the other form. Next slide. Once you completed the detailed budget table, you have to upload it on the online submission system as annex to the Part B template. The format of the Excel that you use is an XLSM because it uses macros. While you work on it, you should always save it as XLSM. Once you need to upload, you'll need to save it in a normal Excel format. So for security reasons, you cannot upload the file with the macros. You should always keep a copy of the original Excel with the macros with you, because we might need you to send it to us if needed. Next slide. So now I'll talk to you about the private members' contribution. So there's another annex called the members' contribution. So this part concerns only for EURail members. The members should fill in a dedicated table to account for their contributions in ECOP or ECA. These contributions should have a leverage effect of 1.263, meaning that for each euro of EU funding, the members should contribute with 1.263 euros of in-kind contributions on operational activities, ICOP, or in-kind contributions for additional activities, which is the ECA. Any discrepancy to this ratio shall be well and duly justified. Next slide. So to do this, the members have the members table. As previously stated, the total eligible costs correspond to the formula 1 euro of co-funding plus 1.263 euros of in-kind contributions. This 2.263 ratio is the baseline to all EURail grants open to the members. This table is quite simple and should consolidate all the information for all the members participating in the project. In the first column, the members should be listed. The second column should contain the information concerning the requested EU contribution. And the third column must have the amount of total contributions on top of the fund. The fourth column will indicate the ratio of the contributions, and the final one serves to add any justifications or comments if the ratio is not aligned. Next slide. So during the gap phase, the type G contribution should be filled in with the ECOP and ECA information for the members participating in the project. Filling this information is mandatory. The figures encoded should be in line with the figures declared in the table estimated members' contribution. Next slide. So there's one lump sum dedicated page in the funding and tenders portal. In it, you will find a trove of elements pertaining to the lump sum processes. You can find very instructive video tutorials, guidance documents, and a list of future events dedicated to lump sum. If you're interested in the subject, I would strongly advise you to consult it. Many thanks. This was my last slide. I will now give the floor back to Nicolas.
Thank you very much, Sandro, for the presentation on the financial guidelines. Sandro, would like just to let's say invite you to have a look at the chat because we have some questions linked to the let's say financial guidelines I've just explained. So the first one is, could you explain why there are no more financial ex post audits by the European Commission? Is it thanks to the use of lump sum?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's no checking more of timesheets and all the financial information, because now with the lump sum we release the funds based on the completion of the work. So the important thing for us, if we complete the work package and if the deliverables are approved, if this is the case, we'll release the fund. There's no need for financial checking of the normal financial documents.
Thank you. For the second question, so it's linked to pre-financing. So when is the financing discontinued in case of lump sum model at the final payment after the end of the project or continuously when particular work package is finished?
So the pre-financing discounted in case of lump sum model. Yes. So the release of lump sum shares is done according to the completion of the work package. If by any chance we esteem that the work package was not completed and the funding of that work package has to be reduced, and this has an impact on the funding that has already been received by the beneficiary, we will have to eventually emit a recovery order so that the beneficiary reimburses the amount of money that they have received for the completion of the work package.
Thank you, Sandro. And the last one is regarding the template.
Sorry, just to add, this is always done at the final payment. So only at the final payment, these decisions of the financial situation of the beneficiaries within the project is done.
Thank you. And the last question was regarding the, let's say, template Excel templates that we asked the consortia to fill in. And the question is, if it's possible to get an online form, but for this one, I'm sorry to reply that you will have to use this Excel spreadsheet.
I think there's internal developments, but nothing of this is ready to be applied in this next call or the next one later in the year.
So thank you very much, Sandro.
Sorry, just to complement, basically, you should use the macro file as it is. You only have to convert it to a normal Excel file once you do the upload. Okay.
Thank you, Sandro. So we are coming to the Q&A part of the info day session. I mean, we have addressed all the questions in the chat, either in written or like now with my colleague Sandro orally. But just to also confirm that all these questions will be part of the Q&A that the GA will publish. Also, we'll put all the answers provided in writing. If there's no more questions, because I don't see any more questions in the chat, again, I would like to invite you if you have a doubt, if you need to get a clarification, to contact the GU. So please send your question to the functional mailbox email address. Do not send your question directly to my colleagues in the GU, because we'll not reply to you directly. We'll always use the Q&A tool to reply to your questions. So all your questions should be addressed to this functional mailbox email address. And as I said, next answer will be provided, and this will be published on a regular basis on the Europcell website, and also the answers will be put on the EU funding and tender portal. So for your, let's say, for you to have a look at the replies from the GU. I see no other question in the chat, so I think we're coming to the end of the, sorry, there is one comment or question. So you suggest to split transversal work packages such as communication management work packages to get intermediate funding. I mean, this, it's up to you. You want to design your project, sort of your project, but to be clear, if you want to be paid during the life of your project, not having only the preference in the final payment, you are free to structure your project as you want, but the payment will be done at the end of the work packages. Huh? I mean, in terms of depending on the reporting date also of your projects. So now regarding the closing remarks, first of all, there is another question, sorry. So yes, regarding the participation of companies who have specific experience in other sectors, at least I understood the question. So again, for me, this is up to your company to assess if you have the right expertise for the call, and if you want to bring, let's say, expertise from other sectors for the highway call topics. And next, also to discuss with your partners in the consortium, you can contribute to it. So I would say regarding your specific question, the calls are open to any entity who are eligible for the call topics. And if you have a specific expertise in other sectors that you would like to bring in the rail sector, and if this also is acknowledged by the consortium in which you are involved, you are free to do it. Now, closing remarks. So I think I will be very, very short for this. So today we have tried to provide you an highlight on the call topics. So 2 topics for this call 2026-01. We of course invite you to have a careful look at the call topic description. So we'll find much more information what has been provided today. And of course, we hope that you have appreciated this session, and we also hope that you will, let's say, raise your interest for those cool topics and submit your proposal to the Europcell. In terms of key deadlines, again, I will remind them to you. The final submission deadline for your proposal is the 7th of May. And in terms of questions, also the final deadline is the 23rd of April. So as the Europcell would like to encourage you to have a look at the call topics, and if you have an interest to submit your proposal to the GU, the Europcell teams remain available in case of question. But again, sorry to insist, please use this functional mailbox email address. And based on this, I would like to wish you also good luck with preparation of your proposal. And as I said, I hope that you have found this session interesting. And also I hope that based on this, you will submit your proposal to the Europcell journal taking for this call 2026-01. Now I would like to wish you a good day and also a good week. And just to see the final question, where can we find the presentation? So the presentation will be made available on the Europcell website with all the links that will be updated. So on this, I would like to thank you for your participation. Thank you for your interest in what Europcell is doing, and wishing you a good day, and wishing you also a good week. And hopefully, I hope that we'll receive many proposals from your organization. Thank you very much.